So, hello everyone, and welcome to my channel. Today, my very special guest is Tricia Barker. Tricia had a near-death experience when she was only 22 years old, and that, like many other people, changed her life. So she actually came back to help us and help us find our paths in life. And she, I would say, shine her lights onto the world. So Tricia, welcome to my channel, and thank you so much for having accepted my invitation.
Oh, well, thank you. This is a pleasure. It's always wonderful to talk about these experiences and to spread light, as you say, because it's always a pleasure to remind each other that we are connected around the world, and this connection is real.
Absolutely. So, Tricia, you are many things. You are a professor, an author, you are a medium, a theta healer. You've written two books. You've had article published. I think there is a documentary on the way also about you. And you have helped a lot of people about with creative writing as well. And I think you still do that. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
So that's absolutely wonderful. I wanted to take you back, maybe to put things in context, Tricia. Maybe just before your accident happened, because I think you had a car crash. And then go on to maybe tell us about your near-death experience.
Yes, so I was a senior in college and I was agnostic. And that was an important part of my story because I was raised by a very religious family in the South. And in America, at that time in the 80s, the religious right was beginning to gear up and it was very intense. I mean, you can see this play out in the United States right now. There was a lot of judgment and there was a lot of intensity, and I didn't like it at all. So I swung very far into being science minded, looking into I want to, make a difference in the world, but more so, I was focused more on my own success. And that success was connected to monetary success and not being a traditional female, really kind of breaking through. And in legal areas, I was interested in becoming a lawyer because that's where my skill set lie. It was kind of obvious, like the liberal arts were, it was my place in college. And as I was nearing that end of college, I also had a lot of emotional issues that I realized from home. I had a very abusive, neglectful upbringing. And these issues, I thought I could just put in the background and kind of move ahead and succeed, but they really were starting to affect me. And I was alarmed by this in some ways, like they were starting to affect me. And I went to see a counselor, and she said, "Why don't you run?" Like that was something you did in high school. And this was something that, I ran cross country in high school, and that was my way of dealing with anger. It was just like run it out. And so I signed up for the Austin 10K, and that was nearing the end of my senior year of college. And this was to me a symbol of, okay, I'm going to get my life together. I'm going to graduate strong. I'm going to go out into the world, to the work world, and I'm going to, get into law school, and everything's going to be fine. Well, what happened is I had a wreck that was massive on my way to run this race. And it completely changed my life. At that time, I didn't have health insurance. So I was and in America, this is a really tough thing. So I was banking everything on, I got accepted to a great university. I had student loans. I was just like, as soon as I can get into school, or as soon as I can get a job, I'll pay for my school.
Mm,
No, I had this major accident.
mm, mm,
And I remember sitting in the car and realizing I couldn't reach for my insurance. And I
mm,
realized something terrible had happened, that I couldn't move. And I didn't know if I was going to be paralyzed. I didn't know if I was going to walk again. I didn't know what kind of internal injuries I had. I just knew that something was terribly wrong. And it was a very long wait for surgery. And I won't go into, how long the wait was, but it was very long, 17 hours before someone operated on me
Mm.
and before they could find someone who was free and able to operate.
Mm.
So by the time I went into surgery, I didn't know, what my chances were. They said 17% chance of death when I signed the form. And I was like, that's close to 20. That's kind of surprising. This is just back surgery. At
Yeah.
that point, I knew what was wrong, but it was the internal injuries that they were worried about. And I thought, well, I'm agnostic. What will happen? I just won't know. If I die, I'll just, die. So there was kind of peace. Either I'll wake up or I won't. And that was kind of what my rational brain thought. I was so shocked, and actually I was joyful. The When I lifted up out of my body, I was convinced. And I tell this to people, and I think that I should convince every agnostic out there. I don't, but I think I should, because I was convinced. The minute I lifted up out of my body, I felt smarter. I felt more online. I felt like this 3D realm was theater, was like my brain was a consciousness that was limited. It's like if you took this unlimited consciousness and shoved it into an animal or a desk or, this body. That's the way it felt. I just felt like, oh, out there, I was so much more. So the minute I was out of my body, I just felt like, oh, okay, this is the reality. We do exist outside of this body, and I saw the body on the table, and I felt some connection to my physical body, but not that much. I just remember going, it's very bloody. There's a lot of blood on the table.
Right.
And I thought, ooh, at that time I didn't really connect and think that maybe this was the internal injuries that, were flowing out.
Mm.
I was up above my body looking down on the surgeons, and my form was kind of like a ball of light at that point. So I hadn't really become a version of my physical form. I was just consciousness. But then I saw these angels behind the doctors. And when I say angels, I didn't call them angels at first. They were just intelligent beings. They were huge beings that were not of this world, because they were of the world that I was in now. And they were way more intelligent than the doctors. And I knew doctors were intelligent. I mean, they were brain surgeons, they were spinal surgeons, for God's sakes. They were incredibly intelligent. But I knew immediately that these light beings had far more knowledge, far more intelligence. And they sent this healing light through their eyes, through the surgeons, through their hands into my body, my physical body, and they sent it to my spirit form. And then my spirit form kind of relaxed, and I became less of a ball of light and more like a light body. And in that moment, I just felt like, oh, I'm going to relax into this realm. Everything is fine. But then they said, watch this. And this is when they just began working on me. And it's like they were the real surgeons. And I know that sounds kind of bizarre, but it's like they were picking out bone fragments. The light was making sure that the surgeons were going to find these fragments. And maybe they were even dissolving some things that were
Wow.
that
You
were
could see the
causing.
details. You could see the details in the body.
Yeah, it's like it was an overview, but it was a knowing. So there, a lot of things are just like instantly known, but I could see it kind of like a grid over the body, a light grid. And it was amazing. But at that moment, then I looked up and the monitor clicked and it was like flatlined, and there was a beep. And then I saw the surgeons step back, and I saw the anesthesiologist run around, and I saw everyone kind of go into motion because they realized I was technically dead.
Yeah.
And I thought, ooh, I want to see something else. Like I don't want to watch them revive me. That would be boring. Let's go see what else is out there in spirit form. And so Do you want me to continue? The near-death experience is kind of long.
Yes, because I just remembered you saying in another interview that you, when you met your grandfather, I think it
Yeah,
was,
yes.
somebody, was it somebody, was it God or the source or whatever you want to call it, but, or somebody said to you, do you want to know more? Do you want to see more?
Oh, yes, yes. So I left the hospital. I saw my stepdad get a candy bar. Then I was in the sky and I began hearing, well, first I felt this oneness with everyone I'd known, and I felt this peace and this love. And at a soul level, we're just love. So I really just kind of sent everyone love. And I was like, I love you. Goodbye. If I don't come back, it was nice knowing you. Like, there's really such freedom. There's not fear, like you're flying. I mean, why would you feel fear? You're just happy.
Like a
And that's
normal transition, would you say? Like a normal transition between Earth and the other world, maybe?
there was at first I was in the night sky, and then very quickly I was in the cosmos. So it was like darkness, and then I was in this light years away, really. Now that the James Webb telescopes have started bringing images, I've recognized some of the images. So it looks like I was millions of light years away instantly, just like in the night sky, and then millions of light years away. And I was hearing an intelligence coming toward me saying, love is all that you take with you. It's all that it's your only currency. It's all that remains. Remind them to go to nature, be like a little child, just certain little, small things to remind people. And I remember thinking, these are the great things I'm supposed to take back as a return. This isn't enough, like I need more. And then very quickly, I was in this realm with my grandfather, and I was just happy. And what I saw there is that nothing dies. So everything is eternal. So everything here that we mourn and we have all this grief about, it actually is made eternal. And so, even the grass that we see die each year, it was beautiful, and it almost had a vibration that kind of sung with joy. And my grandfather looked so beautiful. He had died of leukemia, and he had kind of wasted away, and I was the last person that saw him. We were very close, and I loved him. And he had raised up in the hospital bed and waved goodbye to me. We went to lunch and then came back, and he was dead. But he was there in heaven, and he was like 35 with this, he had kind of hair like me and eyes like me, and he just was so beautiful. Like he was just this handsome man, like full of vigor and joy. And he was like, I love you, Tricia. And like in that moment I wanted to be a kid because I was always a kid around him. And so there was this great love between us. And then he showed me this truck that he had given our family, and this truck always made me very sad because my dad did nothing with it, and he just let it rust in the front yard. Now people redo these trucks in America, and they're very beautiful, like this 1950s Chevy blue truck, just absolutely
Lovely.
gorgeous.
Mm.
And so we rode in heaven in this truck. And so like the kid that I was, I got in the back and I let my feet run through the beautiful grass. And then he turned to me out the window and he said, do you want to keep going? And I got this
Right.
sense that maybe I wasn't going to go back to Earth, that maybe the surgery was a little bit dicey, that maybe, it was getting iffy at that point. And
Mhm.
then I was really excited. I was like, oh, I'm going to go see God. Like I knew, you just know what certain things mean. And I was like, yes. And my
Yes.
soul just took off
Let's go.
towards God. Yeah, like who's not going to want to see God? And then I
Of
couldn't wait.
course.
And I was like, yes. And people were praying, and I could feel every word that they said. And I was like, that's sweet, but I'm going to see God, like, and, just kind of broke through their prayers. And as I got closer and closer to God, and this is where so many near death experiencers cry, and I've learned to tell the story without crying at this point,
Mhm.
but every painful thing in my life was washed away. And we all live with a certain amount of anxiety, I think, just because we're in our bodies.
Yes.
and we know this is temporary and anything could happen at any time, and hurt us or destroy us. And there you're safe and you're totally loved.
Mm,
And we don't know on this earth what complete unconditional acceptance and love feels like. But there, in that moment, I felt it. I felt what it is like to be completely like loved
mm,
so much. And that amount of healing
mm.
is like I can't even describe it. There are no words to describe it. It's just, I mean, if there's anything near death experiencers could give everyone, I think we all just want to bottle that up and just like give it to the world. And I think there would be world peace, there would be happiness. Like if we could just all take a drink of that every day.
That would be amazing. But the very nice thing from what I'm hearing, Tricia, is that you actually brought that feeling back with you, or at least more than a soupçon of it, I guess, because you really, it looks like you're reliving it as you're talking. And a lot of people say the same things. You know, as you
Yeah.
say, some people can cry as well because it's such overwhelming. Um, do you sometimes miss the other side?
Oh yeah, that
Mm,
feeling. There is no feeling like that. And that's basically I wanted to stay at that point. So I had no
mhm.
desire to come back. As soon as I felt that good, I was like, no, not coming
Yeah,
back.
not going back.
Forget that, you know? And that's when I couldn't go any closer and feel any better. And God was like, no, you're returning and you're going to teach. Look down. And I saw this river of lights, and I saw that I was going to be an actual teacher first, not necessarily a spiritual teacher, but junior high, high school, college. Oh, and I was mad, like I didn't.
You didn't like it.
I didn't like that mission, like
You wanted to be a lawyer.
yeah, I wanted to make money most of all.
Yeah,
Like
right.
that
Okay.
was
The American dream. You wanted
yeah.
the American dream.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it didn't. I grew up poor, and so I didn't want something traditional for women, and so that's what I was
Mm,
arguing with,
right. Yes, I get
and,
that. Mm.
and God was like, ha ha ha,
Not
you
your
don't
plan.
understand. That's not your plan. You're gonna love it, and you're gonna do it, and it's almost like I didn't have a choice. Like there was.
Right.
I knew that. And people talk a lot about, is there free will? Is there not free will? There is, but I just knew my life would be very sad if I chose to go against what my mission was. I knew that there wouldn't be joy in it, that there would be like, I'd be missing something my whole life.
So you had
And
to agree to the mission. You had
yeah.
to agree. Okay.
And so I agreed, I mean, I had no choice really, like, I mean,
Yes,
I didn't, but,
it became obvious.
I was thrown back into my body, and then
Wow.
life
Shook.
it was just shocking to be alive. So I think at that point, you do go into some shock just to have made it. And so just to have made it to do anything is kind of a miracle.
Yeah. And how long did it take you afterwards to actually get back? Because you had a lot of surgery on your back, as you say, internal injuries, and often takes many years to heal from that. What was it like for you those years afterwards?
Yeah, I was lucky. I was in a body cast, and it did take 9 months, but 4 months in the body cast. And so I
Oh,
learned
imagine.
transcendental. I learned all kind of meditations, and I did
Yeah.
work with my angels. So I was aware. I'm one of the people who was immediately, even right out of surgery, I knew what had happened to me. And I was talking to my surgeon, to the nurses, to my family. I mean, people were making jokes and saying it was the anesthesia, but I knew what had happened to me, and I wouldn't let it go. And there was a certainty about it for me. So I was studying spirituality. I was reading, Dr. Raymond Moody and all the books that were out at that time. I was studying lucid dreaming. and I was getting out of body fairly easily. It was really easy for me in those days. And some of it was just to escape the pain, but some of it was also to participate with my own healing. And I think I did, like there were moments I would work with the angels in my back, and I didn't have the same type of therapy as some people in Hollywood, but Tony Danza broke his back skiing at the exact same time as me, and we both got out of the cast at the same time, and we both were on the same trajectory. So I kind of
Wow.
charted my progress with him. And so
Amazing.
a year later, I ran the Austin 10K. So
You
I was,
did.
yeah, and so many people had heard about my accident that they were like crowds of students and people out there cheering for me, on the
Oh, Tricia,
race.
that's amazing. Yeah, yeah. And it's so nice because a lot of the time people do not appreciate when someone tells them that they've had a near-death experience, especially in America, as you mentioned, religion. If people are very much into religion, in America or other countries, they're going to stick to their guns and they're going to stick to, well, not literally, but you know what I mean. They're going to stick to what they're told, basically. And
Yeah,
in a way, being taken into that other realm, you knew something that they didn't.
yeah.
And so, how was it for you when you started maybe speaking about it?
You know, it was easier to tell students than it was to tell religious people, certainly.
Mm.
So I think innocent people who were hurting and really kind of open to just answers or just open to something different.
Yeah.
There was beauty in that. But you know, people who were slightly open, like if there was just an openness to the paranormal. So if people wanted to talk about ghosts that were in their house at some point, if people, had just a slight openness to the paranormal or spiritual experiences, then it was
Yes.
really quite joyful to talk about the experience with people like that.
Sure.
So I found lots of people who were open to some degree, but the hardline conservative Christians would come at me with a lot of fear, and it's
Mm.
almost worth not it's not worth talking to them, like
Mm.
they really, and unfortunately a big percentage of people in my family are like that. And
Yes.
so that's pretty painful. My
Mm.
own mother believes I'm going to burn in hell, and will say that to my face, and that's
Gosh.
and I'm just like, oh, mom, that's a really mean thing to say.
Wow.
First of all, like, you probably shouldn't say that to
Wow.
anyone, because it's mean,
Yeah.
and you're not really an authority. Like, even though I feel like I know God's love and God's mercy, I wouldn't say anything that mean to someone.
Mm.
It's not God's love.
Mm.
Like, I think I would remind people that they're loved by God and to look for God themselves.
Yeah. It's incredible what people choose to think, even if it goes against the grains of even loving their family deeply, or I mean, I'm sure she loves you, but there is something that stops her believing you, which is extremely painful to hear that from your own mother, of course. And there's the other side of that is that, well, we all have our own journey, don't we?
Yeah.
Spiritually. And it seems to me that her journey is just that. And your journey has to cross with that path as well in a way. But it doesn't take the pain away as a human being to, we all love to be understood. That's a really important thing, isn't it?
Yeah. And so what is that divide, I think, in certain places around the world, and how do we cross that divide? I think the person who can love beyond that, who can make a joke around it, who can go, well, like, I love you anyway, who can really,
Yeah.
love beyond
Yeah.
that.
Yes.
Um, does reach that. I believe that that consciousness of Jesus is misunderstood by a lot of Christians, and that it is coming to earth, like in a interesting way, that that love that Jesus had for people is really a love in action. And I think what I was shown to do is to love all these students in action, was to love the wounded kids, love the broken kids, love the ones who no one else loved because they needed it, and they might
Mm,
have committed suicide, or they might have committed a crime where they just were hurting so much someone needed to love
mm,
them,
mm,
like they were crying out for it.
yeah,
And that was that was angels, that was Jesus, that was God working through me. And I can't even say that it was me sometimes. And it was healing the broken parts in me that didn't
wow,
receive,
yeah,
and it was such a gift to me. And I think we forget in a day of social media and people isolating themselves so much how good it feels to be in actual motion in the world. And I loved those
mm,
days when I wasn't on social media, when I was very humble and working in a country school in the middle of nowhere, and no one knew that I was a near death experiencer, and I wasn't a medium online, and I wasn't,
yes,
any of these things. I was pretty much unknown, but I was doing God's work, really, in
yeah,
a powerful way. And there were days I would come home exhausted, from being on the phone with CPS,
wow,
helping,
yeah.
3 different kids in abusive homes. And, just no time for me hardly, but I would realize I did my best for
You did
these
your
3.
best. And you didn't go against the grain. You never thought like, oh my God, I wish that wasn't my mission because it's really hard to carry. Or did you? Did you feel like, no, I've got this inside me now, and it's so in a way joyful to be able to do that?
And what did I loved my summers. I mean, teachers have summers off,
So she had the time off, yes.
and so I did enjoy those fully. I mean, I've always worked and, like done something, but I did, enjoy some travel and some creative
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
downtime. And
yeah. So you had to make sure that you have other stuff going on as well. So
yeah.
because it's hard, isn't it? We can say we're in service, but it's very hard because we still have to look after ourselves. We have to, I believe, and you can tell me whether that was obvious to you in your near death experience, because some of the people have said to me, what I've learned from the near death experience is to love myself,
Mhm.
the importance of actually looking after ourselves, loving ourselves, not in a narcissistic way, but actually to be able to shine our light outside and reach other people. A bit like a ricochet on the water, isn't it, in a way?
Yeah, yeah, like there was a moment when I was, that hard day, or those several hard days where, I came home exhausted, and I remember opening the refrigerator and going, I'm either going to eat a ton of food, or I'm going to drink a bottle of wine, or I'm going to run. And so I choose running again, and then I chose therapy, and I
Yeah,
really, and I chose sobriety, and I
yeah,
chose really, like, delving into myself and doing that hard work so that I could be, and chose integrity, and I don't think we
yeah.
hear that enough. As I mean, this was a soul mission. So I
Yes,
had to be a model for these
yeah,
kids of
yeah,
someone who could overcome my issues. I mean, I'm not perfect, but I could at least be someone who went deep, did the best I could, gave them authentic pathways to healing,
mhm,
looked deeply into, how to move forward. And I'm still honest with students, and I think they
mhm,
appreciate it. And I
yeah,
think, even today, there are a lot of my students who, believe it or not, I have populations of students who come from very traditional households, and they, I'm someone who's still in some ways not traditional. I didn't have kids, and for me that was the right choice. There are many reasons why
absolutely. It's
people
not,
have kids
there's
and
no rule saying you have to have children, is there?
I know. It's just, with my back injury and my
Yeah.
childhood, for me,
Oh
it
gosh,
wasn't
it would
the
have
right
been really
choice.
hard. Yeah. Mm, mm,
Wasn't the right choice. And I just tell them I've been really joyful about it. I love being of service and working with young people.
mm.
Like,
Mm.
absolutely love it. And I'd love in the future to have, like, during the holidays, have international students over who don't go home, for Christmas and Thanksgiving for dinners. But to
Yes.
never missed having kids. And I like the extra money to spend on my healing and travel. It's not selfish. I needed it. Like,
No,
I had a
absolutely.
I needed it. And
Trisha, you don't have to, I completely agree with you. And to be honest, you couldn't have done your work if you had children because you wouldn't have been so available to the students and you come home, you can relax a bit more, which is a good thing. I wanted to ask you, Tricia, before we go on about talking about what you do today as well with your Theta healing. There's a couple more questions I wanted to ask you. um, Judgment on earth, we're very judgmental. People always feel that, oh, it's somebody's fault, right? They can't take responsibility for their own lives a lot of the time. Not talking about everybody, but there will be some people who do that. And on the other side, I have heard that there's no judgment. What is your take on that? That the judgment is actually ours, because we didn't talk about your life review. Did you have a life review?
so, the only judgment that we have is really of ourselves, not
Yes.
others. And it's, can we do better? Can we love more? And that's the only thing we really look at. And, the thing I did leave out my life review that I saw was that when I was deeply depressed, there was a couple at a restaurant, and they were older than me. They were a married couple, and they prayed for me. And they were Catholic, and they wanted me to feel better, feel happier. They went home and they included many people, but I was one of the people they included in their prayers. And I just didn't think that they were cool. They weren't at school, they weren't at university, they were kind of full-time waiters. And I just felt so horrible. I was like, oh my God, they're really nice people. And I didn't bother to
Yes.
talk to them. And it
Yes.
just broke my heart that I was a snob. And and that I had that kind of judgment, that snap judgment about someone based on their appearance or their age. And
I
it
know.
I just wiped that from my consciousness. And I was like, I will always look at people based on their heart and who
Yeah.
they are, that good people are good people. It doesn't matter how they dress,
No.
like, none of that.
Absolutely. We're absolutely all equal. Actually, I remember you saying that in, I think it was the Alex Ferrari show, and it actually stuck in my head. And I was thinking, oh my God, because when I was like 15 at college, I used to think, oh my God, this person's not cool. Oh, I don't like the way she's wearing what she's wearing. And I would never do that now because I'm thinking, well, I might think I don't like it, but it's not a judgment. And it's
Yeah,
so immature, isn't it, to actually live our lives according to those rules. So
it
immature.
is.
But we have to grow. We have to go from primary to university or whatever it is.
We
Um,
do. And that's what the angels say, even about the toughest personality traits. Even, there's so much talk online about narcissists, and yes, they do great pain, and they're just, they can do such pain in families. But when I ask the angels about narcissists themselves, they go, "Oh, they're just kids. They're just treat them like little babies." Like they're just wounded and stuck, and like look at them like little
Interesting.
tantrums, like they're throwing
Yeah.
tantrums.
Because they don't judge them. They're just letting them fulfill, what's the word, go through their journey, their path, and but they'll have to learn at some point. And talking about angels, what do they think about the state of the world right now? What do they say to you about that? Because it's pretty crazy, isn't it?
You know what they wish? They wish that every single one of us would use the power of their own angels to start. Like, this is really wild. Like, they're showing me we all could grow, like, even in a pot, like some herbs or some flowers, something beautiful. We all could donate something, help someone, be talk to someone at a bakery a little bit more. We all could use them in certain ways to interact more, to get involved just a little bit more, to do cleanup, like say a building burns down, like talk to the owner of the building and see if they need some help, cleaning up. Like, they're saying we all could get involved in our communities a lot more, and that the state of the world is going to change by getting involved at a local level and letting the angels work through you. That, you don't have to feel like you change the world. You can change your block, or you can change your relationship with your neighbor. You can change, something. But every single person is going to have to shift just a little bit, just a little shift.
Doing things. So that was your angels channeling that through you. How
Yeah.
beautiful, Tricia. And so it's really the things that we do on a small scale ourselves from the heart. And that's something that we can spread, something joyful, or as you say, something helpful. And we never know really how incredible that result can be.
Yeah, because you never know where it becomes a movement, where it becomes a business, where it becomes a friendship, where it becomes,
Yes.
this friend marries someone, or, like, you never know
Reaching out.
how these can
Reaching
happen.
out.
Yeah.
So you mentioned like, like little, even if you don't have a garden, grow things, etc. Is that because you think the world is going to become maybe more smaller communities than there is now, or
Well, I think, what happens is, like, in the States, like, we always get these recalls, like listeria runs through lots of vegetables, and then suddenly you don't have peppers. And it's not like there's a mass widespread, like, slowdown, but then there's just like sometimes things happen. And so if your neighbor has peppers and you need peppers, like, I think sometimes, and you just
it's about
wanted to,
sharing?
yeah, it's just about having more of a community, and having a little bit more of a fallback to go, you know what? I don't have to buy peppers at the grocery store. I've always got my peppers, and I'm the pepper lady, like, and
Yes,
everyone knows
yes.
that.
Yeah,
you
no,
know.
no, I get that. I mean, we grow vegetables here but we're lucky to have a big garden, so that's very easy. But for some people in the flats, yes, you can do it on your balcony, even it's just herbs,
Yeah.
to bring and make your food more delicious or make special teas, etc. Um, Another question I wanted to ask you, Tricia. Um, and maybe the angels can help us as well on that. Um, how can we feel our way through our soul purpose? Because you've been out there, you understood things so quickly when you're out there, and people do, don't they? It's like instant. Um, you don't even think about it; it comes to you. So for us on Earth, most people don't haven't had a near-death experience, although more and more people have, I think. Must be a reason for that. How can we, is there a tip you can give us to really understand how to go about our soul purpose or our mission? Doesn't have to be a big one, I understand that, but mm,
There are many different ways. People always say meditation, and that's important. It kind of depends on you. Like, and what works for you. For me, I love the mountains. Some people love the beach, but whatever brings you peace, I think nature kind of clears the slate. So I would say go
Yeah.
somewhere, if it's forest, if it's a top of a mountain, if it's the beach,
Mm.
definitely you can go somewhere and think,
Yeah.
like alone. There's something beautiful about going, taking a walk alone and
Yes.
meditating and really thinking, getting away from society, getting away from the noise and going,
Mm.
if everything, if you wipe the slate clean, what really matters to you? And I think that
Mm.
takes time, and it also takes quiet time, where
Mm.
you're not distracted. So many people have
Mm.
written books about how they've taken a sail and their phone fell into the ocean. It was the best sailing trip they ever had,
Yeah.
because they weren't distracted. They didn't have to text their wife when they'd be home. They didn't have to, like, we really need those moments,
Yes.
no distractions.
Yeah.
It's important, just us, our soul, and our God. If you can do that.
Yeah. So Trisha, what about yeah, get it being in nature, of course. And making silence, isn't it, for ourselves within ourselves to to leave room. I think you were talking about as well to leave room for spirit to come through or for advice from intuition.
Yeah, and another thing that is important is people don't ask their own guides enough to, ask and you'll receive. That idea is important, and just keep asking your angels and asking your guidance. Like, say, I need signs, I need synchronicities that lead me in the right directions.
Mm.
And you will see books. Your subconscious will start working with you in
Yes.
certain ways. And I love Jungian therapists. I love dream work, but again, not for everyone.
Mm.
So it really depends on you,
Yeah.
like what modalities work for you. And some people hate meditation, but I'd say try every form of meditation. Some meditation, like transcendental meditation, for me is amazing. Not a huge fan of mindfulness, but that some people love that. Like, I love guided meditations, like
Mm.
there's, but some people hate those. It's
Yeah,
just
we're all
try.
different.
Yeah,
Mm.
we're all different. And so when it comes to finding your path, some people love having a life coach, and some people need to work on, like, I worked with Lisa Romano, who is a life coach and for people with codependency. And that can really help you claim a lot of your own power that you've lost along the way to other people personally. And so there's you know, you don't want to lose yourself along the way.
Yeah.
And sometimes part of the journey is really just learning to hear, what you really want, and stop people pleasing, for some. And for others, it's kind of the opposite. It's learning to go, wow, my relationships are suffering because I'm so stubborn, and I'm so,
Right.
so
Yes.
rigid, that I'm
Yes.
not forgiving, and I need to, heal those wounds in order to trust a little more, and
Mm.
open up to that possibility of love. So it really depends on the
Yeah.
person. But I would say in general, here's one more thing. Not everyone, some people really balk at the idea of service. And sometimes creativity and invention is a form of service.
Mm.
And so, just remember that too, that your guides and angels can download you with creative ideas and with business ideas. And that's still a service to humanity. And, that,
Yes.
and being just good at organizational details and supporting someone else who's doing a service for this world is a
Right,
wonderful thing.
right. Yeah. Well, thank you for saying that, which brings us to really what you do today, because you came back with a lot of gifts, your mediumship, your guidance ability, healing abilities. Um, so you've been helping people in many different ways, and you do some theta healing, you do guidance for people, spiritual guidance, angelic guidance. and you do creative writing. So, what would you like to talk about right now? About all those or some of those? What would be most helpful, do you think?
Oh, I am a English professor and a creative writing professor. So occasionally I do work with people who are writing a spiritual memoir, and it's really cool. I have connected with women mainly, but a few men who are writing about their spiritual journeys. Fascinating. I'm not going to give away their book titles yet, but wow, I'm really excited, about some of the books that people have shared with me. So that's cool. As far as the healing goes, it's like teaching in a way. I'm so honored, that people feel safe with me and choose, to share some of their story with me and their life with me. It's really a blessing. And
Mm.
to me, I just kind of give myself over to the light and we'll see what comes through. And I'm a reluctant medium. That was initially not something I wanted to do.
Right, right. So, medium talking to the spirits, to the spirit world. You were reluctant for that, yeah. Because particular reason?
Yeah, just I still teach, at a community college, and
Mm.
there's always some fear, that someone could take offense or that it could conflict with what I do in some way.
Okay.
But largely it hasn't. And what I've found is that it is healing. And many parents who've lost children have been the ones to contact me. And they have insisted that it is healing for them. And so, that's why I've continued, is people do find it healing. And theta healing, I just love. Like I do it on myself,
I was
and
going to say, yeah.
I
So,
I love it.
no, that's good. I do La Hoshi healing.
Oh,
Um, and because I'm a hypnotherapist and I do La Hoshi healing, and I really love that modality, actually. Sorry, Bambo, you're gonna have to leave us. You're gonna have to leave us, my lovely, because you're gonna have to go in your
we might
bathroom.
have to do a trade or something. I don't know what that is. I'm curious.
Oh yeah, yeah, I'd love that. Yeah, absolutely. And actually, I love to do it online, Trisha, because um, when you're online, I find that you're very relaxed yourself. So you can do the healing on yourself and then it reaches other people. It's all about energy, isn't it?
Yes,
So
yes.
what about the Theta modality then? Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so we hold programs at a genetic level, and this makes sense. How well, in my ancestral line, all the women seem to get thyroid issues. And, on
Right.
my father's side, leukemia runs in that direction. So why not clear, at the DNA level, some of those programs or some of those, consciousness programs that run through the DNA? Then if you believe in past lives, or if you believe that maybe just at some oneness level, we have storylines that we connect with at a soul level, that we hang on to because of religion or because of soul contracts. There's certain things at a soul level we hold on to, and that's so fascinating. If you're into soul regressions, I think that
Yes.
theta healing can heal some of this as well. um, it's just, to me, it's so interesting to do with people because I'll just see it come up in them and see it clear. And some clearings are more powerful than others, but even the subtle ones are important,
Mm.
and at a soul level. And then at a core level, we're all holding on to so much from media, from culture, from family. And then we can't change our own history, but we can certainly, just like EMDR or any other, Reiki or any other modality, send healing to the trauma we've stored in our own body and continue to keep working on that,
I
because there's a
love
lot
that.
of that. Like, oh my
Yeah.
God.
When you were talking, it made me think, and I'm sorry, everybody, about Mr. Bamboo, Monsieur Bamboo, but he loves being on online as well. So,
It's
no.
beautiful.
Did you hear about Bamboo? Okay, but you've got to leave me alone now. I was thinking about well, it's the French word transgénérationnel. So, when you heal. the different the ancestors in your family, because you can, I believe, carry something from them, the trauma that hasn't been um, sorted out. And when you were saying that at the beginning of the Theta, it just make me think, I mean, if we could heal that, that is just amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, and the beautiful part is like sending love to them on the other side where they get a glimpse of what it would be like to have lived without those fears or to have lived,
Wow.
without
Yeah.
those programs. And then the future generations, like I love working with people who do have kids because I believe like, ooh, if you heal it in them, it might be translated to their kids as well,
Yes. Yes.
that
Yes. Yeah. But Trisha, do you think that it's part of our contracts in a way to, at this time in the universe on Earth, to experience um, some trauma from the ancestors, maybe so that we can more and more look at them? Because with all those wars, there's a lot of karma, isn't there, being created and having to work on. Um, yeah, what do you think about that, the karma?
Yeah, it what I do see I do see a big jump in consciousness, and it's kind of interesting. Like in the next 30, 20 to 30 years, like I see us passing on, like you and I passing on and kind of achieving it. Like finally, like I see what we're trying to do is really get to that light. Like we want to consciously move into the light at the end of our lives and kind of translate that to the next generation to live in the light, to live consciously, to live without harm, to
Mm.
as many people as possible. And maybe it's not that everyone gets it, but just a tipping point,
Mm.
just a tipping point of people who are translating more and more and more of that
Yeah.
conscious living, with doing less harm to the planet and to others. And it really does seem to be like there are ideologies of doing great harm
Yeah.
versus not doing harm. And,
Yeah.
and, and they're very different ideologies. It's
Yes.
really bizarre. And I think it really does revolve around the planet and Mother Earth, either denying Mother Earth or revering the earth.
Yeah. So do you think, like, when we pass over, we will be able to actually help, whether it is our children, our grandchildren, or, anybody that we've known and loved in this life, or maybe we will have another mission of helping someone else,
Oh, it
Um,
is so, yeah.
yeah.
I do. It's so varied over there. Like it's
Yes.
beautiful and complex. And some
Yeah.
people do, like I will say, in general, most ancestors are cheering us on some level. Like
Yes.
they are like, like love, sending us loves, cheering for us.
Yeah.
And some are working very particularly, like there are some grandparents who really follow their grandchildren, who just are almost like guides to their grandchildren. It's so adorable, like I see that, they're with them on their journey. There are some people who are so creative and so driven in their work, that they continue to seed ideas, like, inventors, that
Yes.
seed ideas, new
Yes.
inventors, like there's a multitude of things that people
Yeah.
do. I see kids who have died early connecting their parents with other parents sometimes who have lost kids. And so they connect with other kids who are over there. It's really kind of sweet. And they don't want their parents to suffer. They want
Yes.
them to find connections. There's so many different things. Some people do. It's not that they become quote angels, but it's like they have it's almost like they're hospice workers over there. And that's an
Mm.
odd way of putting it, but
You're right.
they like to help the dying, like they like
Yes.
to help. people transition,
Mm,
in certain ways. They may not be family members, but they are very good at helping with the
mm.
transition.
What do you think of so because some people think about we call it the silver cord, some people say, that leaves our body basically, am I right? Our consciousness. Would that be our consciousness leaving our body?
Yeah, so when you lucid dream, you get back, like that cord. I always feel it, like
You
you
feel
get
it?
back. Yeah, because you're still connected to your body in a lucid dream. Um, Perhaps I don't think I really felt it in the near-death experience. I think I was pretty free of it,
Mhm.
and maybe that's why going between the worlds becomes easy, for a near-death experiencer, or we say we're kind of between the two
Yes,
worlds.
yes, yeah,
There's something really strange about a near-death experience, and I've never been able to put it fully into words. It's both traumatic at a physical level and amazing at a spiritual level. I
yeah.
mean, to be someone who's really not intuitive, and I really wasn't that intuitive or that empathic. I was sensitive, and intelligent before the NDE, but
But you were so
not,
young. You were
I
so
was,
young still,
I know
you know.
it, it, but I was like, as soon as I woke up from that near death experience, I could read any book by any Indian guru talking about the most metaphysical stuff and go, yep, I understand.
You
Like,
understand it. Yeah,
I got it. Like there wasn't, it didn't have to be explained to me. Like I understood, so it was like I got an injection of 50 years of meditation, into my head
yes, yes.
with one
Yeah. A
experience.
lot of people say that, and I think it's absolutely wonderful. It's not to say that other people who haven't had it, you know, we mustn't wish for one. This is what I'm saying, because it comes with a lot of pain, as you've witnessed, and each one of us has a different path, and we have to accept whatever we choose. Not we choose, whatever we chose before we came, right?
Right.
Before we
Yeah.
signed the contract, so to speak. But it's really fascinating. And it's so difficult to understand for some people, and it's so easy for other people to understand those near-death experiences. And I think it's always really important to remember, certainly for me, I remember every time when I interview someone who's had a near-death experience, is like, make sure you listen carefully, because even if it resembles something else that you've heard before, if there is a great importance in what each of the person is saying. And of
Yeah.
course, we cannot feel what you felt. And we, in a way, I would wish to feel it, because then I can really get into your head 100% and and really be with that feeling myself would be amazing.
You know,
But
I think you
yeah,
can. And this is my hope with so many people telling these stories is like you could meditate after interviewing me, and maybe there's some piece of my story that you've heard before, and maybe I said today that really touched your soul.
yeah,
And maybe you can experience it in that realm, in that meditative realm, or maybe you
yes,
will next week, that maybe
yes,
you'll just feel the stars, or you'll feel flying free, or you'll just feel that love of God, just in a meditation. You'll just feel like, oh, that's what it feels like to be that loved, and you stay
yeah,
there, for a while.
yes,
And, maybe we spread that, with our
yeah,
stories so that you don't have to experience pain, because we were really stubborn, like I think, and we had a soul contract, I'm convinced of it.
yes,
Enough
yeah.
astrologers have contacted me, and I was having, and I left this out of my story, but I was having a lot of premonition dreams before my near death experience that I was
Yes.
to die. and I thought it was that I was going to die.
Yes.
And
Somebody was trying to warn you in some ways. But thank you for reminding me of that as well, because I remember I had two events where it's coming back to me now, where I felt that deep love. And I'm not religious. I was brought up as a Catholic, but you know, in France, when you're a Catholic, you go to church. My parents didn't force anything on me. I didn't listen when we went to what's the word, catechism, you know, the school. I really didn't listen because it didn't make sense to me. However, once I went into a place where they had paintings of people, and it was about Jesus and the Christ. And I walked in there, Tricia, I looked at the first picture and I burst into tears. And I didn't know why. I mean, I'm not against religions. I think it has a place, but it's not something I seek to. And it really, really touched me. And the second time, you know, it was that love, that really unconditional love that I felt. And the second time I was chanting, because at one point, my friend who's a Buddhist, I was chanting with her. And this time I was doing on my own, and I was at my brother's house, and he has his kids' photos on the wall. I was looking at them, and suddenly I felt this amazing love. And now I know what you're talking about because I actually felt it myself. And you know, you forget. But yeah, it was incredible. It was like completely unconditional, like that freedom of love.
yeah, oh, I love that. You're just reminding me I could do a podcast where I just get people together and we just talk about cool spiritual experiences.
Yes.
Just like that. Oh, love it. Love those
That would be
stories.
really nice, wouldn't it?
Yes.
But you know, Trisha, we're coming to the end of this interview. We could go on forever, couldn't we? But we can
Good.
always do another one. The thing that I really liked about you when I listened to you on your first interview and made me want to contact you, it's that you're down to earth, but you are very I felt very touched for a start, but I think you're very authentic. And you know, that is really important, isn't it? Especially when you tell the stories. And
Yeah.
also you say it as it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
There's
and but you're down to earth as well. You know, you've got this connection, but you're also down to earth with your teaching and everything else. And as a sensitive person, I could feel your sensitivity, and I think that's where I thought, yes, and thank you for being here. And thank you very much for this interview. I am so pleased that I asked you and that you came to me. That's wonderful. And thank you to everybody who's listening. Well, will listen to this podcast. As I say, just take care of yourselves. And if you like this video, please just like it. That's a little fun. And also subscribe because that will help my channel grow and more people will be able to listen. So thank you, Trish. I wish you the best.
and
And
you
I hope that the summer arrives in England because it hasn't arrived yet. But
oh,
you must be
it's
very hot in Texas. Thank
yes,
you. Thank you, Trish. Take care of yourself.
you too.
Bye bye.
Bye.